Can you believe it? The very son I raised for 35 years took me to a bar to discuss killing his father for the insurance money. And if it hadn't been for a light flickering 3 times in the night, I might now just be a corpse in my old Ford. Because what I am about to tell you will make you understand that the deepest pain is when your own blood wants to erase you from this world. Before I continue, please hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are listening from. Your support is the strength that helps me keep exposing the truths many want to bury. I don't remember which hymn played when they lowered the casket, only the salty wind from Yakina Bay, slipping through the church windows, carrying the smell of seaweed and the rattle of a flagpole. Helen always said Newport in March had 2 things, drizzle and promises. Today the rain still fell steadily, but promises I was not sure. After the service, I stood under the church eaves, my old wool hat soaked, my hand gripping the black scarf until my knuckles turned white. People came one by one to hug me, saying the words Americans always say on days like this. Sorry for your loss, Ed. She was a wonderful woman. I nodded, thanked them, then watched them fade into the rain, like harbor lights dimming as the tide went out. Our villa sat on a slope overlooking the bay, a cedar-shingled house with wide windows and white railings, each stair chosen by Helen herself whenever the workers cut corners. When we bought it, we couldn't pay in full. I mortgaged part of the boathouse, then the 2 of us toiled for 10 years, fixing engines and painting decks, before daring to call it home. That afternoon, when I opened the door, the silence inside hit me like a cold wave. A vase of lilies someone had left on the kitchen table carried the faint smell of Helen's hand cream. Her raincoat still hung by the door, its folds exactly as they were last Wednesday morning. Marcus arrived late. My son parked his gray SUV in front of the garage, slamming the door harder than needed. He wore black, his tie crooked, his eyes not red as I had expected, only swollen the way a man looks when he has been losing sleep over calculations. I opened the cabinet and poured him a cup of coffee. He lifted it out of habit, took a sip, and grimaced. How many times have I told you, Dad, he said, your heart can't handle strong coffee. I've handled it since you were in 3rd grade, I said, forcing a smile. We sat at the dining table facing the bay. Fog wove a thin white ribbon across the water, a few crab boats hovering like commas. I thought Marcus would mention his mother, the scarf she wore while baking, or the last evening the 4 of us, me, Helen, Marcus, and Laura, dined together under the porch. But he didn't. He looked around the living room like a realtor assessing value. Dad, his voice low but quick, Laura and I have talked. You should seriously think about moving closer to us in Beaverton. This house is too big, too many stairs. If you fall... I just installed handrails last week, I said. Besides, your mother loved this place. I know. He swallowed, his eyes clouded for a second. But Helen's gone. You alone out here. And the boathouse? He hesitated. Business is slowing down, isn't it? I set the cup down. Son, today is your mother's funeral. Can we talk about this in a week? He pressed his lips. You think I'm heartless, but I'm worried for you. This house is worth a lot. Sell it. You'll have money for retirement and be closer to the kids. I'll handle the paperwork. You won't need to lift a finger, Helen used to say. When a man says, let me handle it, he usually means control. I looked at Marcus. In his face, I saw my younger self, the way I tried to look calm when the bank called about our debt in 1998. But in his eyes was something I never had, a restless hunger. Not tonight, I said, folding the napkin flat. I'm tired. He sighed, as if conceding a small round. Laura stepped in from the kitchen, offering me a plate of warm apple pie. My daughter-in-law's eyes were gentle, her voice soft as rain. She touched Marcus's shoulder discreetly, as if to say, enough. Marcus nodded, grabbed his coat. I'll come back tomorrow, he said. Some papers, little things needing your signature. I'll explain what papers. Just minor things. He smiled. The practice smile he used on clients at the software firm. Bright, measured, not reaching the eyes. Rest now, Dad. The door shut, the sound of the SUV rolling down the slope, fading into the rain. Laura leaned close, whispering, I'm sorry about him. Everyone's tense today. I shook my head. It's not your fault. Night fell fast, as it does on the West Coast. I pulled on rubber boots and stepped onto the back porch. Rainwater slid down the wood beams, gathered in fat drops, falling onto the roots of the old tree Helen planted our first year here. The porch swing still creaked in the wind. I sat, pulled a thin blanket over my knees. From there I could see the red beam of the lighthouse flashing. 4 times, pause, 4 times again. Helen liked counting the pauses to guess the wind. I opened my phone. Condolence emails, hospital bills, insurance notices, waves mixing with foam. At the bottom was a message from Marcus, sent earlier. Sorry about this morning. I just want you to be safe. I'll be over early tomorrow. Love you, Dad. I stared at the words. Love you, Dad. And my stomach twisted. The words were right, but the voice wasn't the same as the boy who once clung to my neck, learning to ride his bike by the marina. Around 10, the gate buzzer rang. I thought Marcus had returned, but on the screen stood Anna, the part-time caretaker, her hair tied with a worn blue cloth. I finished work. Early, she said as I opened the gate. Wanted to light incense for Mrs. Helen and see if you need anything tonight. We sat at the kitchen table, and Anna poured tea. She was the kind of woman the coast makes. Firm hands, direct eyes, few words, steady work. Helen trusted her completely. So did I. How's Marcus? Anna asked. Still. Marcus, I said, forcing a smile. She turned the cup handle slowly. A few days ago I saw him driving a different car with plates I didn't recognize. He was with people I'd never seen. Maybe I'm wrong, but you should be careful. In a small town, news spreads fast. I nodded, a needle pricking my spine. Thank you. I'll be careful. She rose to leave, but paused at the door. Mr. Ed, I know you don't want to talk about selling the house, but if anyone shows up asking for power of attorney or papers, don't sign. Let me check. People move fast these days. I know. I squeezed her hand. Thank you. After she left, I returned to the living room. Our wedding photo stood on the mantel in an oak frame I had built myself. I looked at my young face in the picture, thick hair, untested smile, and wanted to sneer at that boy. He didn't know that 40 years later he'd learned to sit alone in a house too beautiful, straining to hear the voice of a woman gone in the patter of rain outside. Late that night, I switched on the lamp in the small office. The Grant Boatworks file lay neatly in the drawer. Business licenses, marina maintenance contracts, balance sheets. I leafed through marked pages needing renewal. It was an obsession with work on the day my wife was buried. It was just that, since poverty, I'd learned this trick. When grief tries to drown you, spread papers on the table. Numbers don't lie. Numbers give you something to hold. On the cover of the notebook, Helen had once written in blue ink, "This house is for love, not leverage." I touched my finger to the line, then closed the book. Out there somewhere, Marcus was calculating what he called the future. I do not want to think ill of my own son, but when someone loses half their heart, the remaining half becomes finely tuned to the smallest tremors, like how this house creaks and groans to warn of a storm before the radio even announces it. At midnight, I went out on the porch again. The rain had eased. The cold air cut my lungs, but the sky opened, a pale patch of moon slipping through the clouds. I closed my eyes and listened to the drip from the roof into the catch basin. Helen, I thought silently, I will keep this place. I do not yet know what to do with the boy, but I will keep what we built with sweat and decency. My hand clenched into a fist, not out of anger, but out of fear. Fear that the young carry ideas faster than love. Fear that a signed line can change a life. The phone buzzed on the table. A message from Marcus, Sent at 12 o'clock. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I'll come by. Don't go anywhere, Dad. I just need you to sign a few papers to settle Mom's hospital bills. It'll be quick. I looked at the words, "It'll be quick," and felt my chest heavy as an anchor. Out at sea, the things promised as quick often end with a call for rescue. I turned off the lights, bolted the doors, checked the kitchen again. Old habits when you live alone. Before going to bed, I paused in the hallway where Helen hung framed pictures of the old wooden boats I used to restore. Under each frame was a small card noting the year completed, the sale price, and the buyer's name. The last card was written by hand and a little shaky. C. Finch, 2023, not for sale. Helen had added that line because she said some things you restore only to keep, not to trade for money. I thought of Marcus. Maybe tomorrow he will understand that not everything can be handled. Maybe he will hold me like the boy he once was when he fell off his bike, his hair still smelling faintly of sea salt. Or maybe tomorrow will be the storm I do not want to name. I pulled the blanket up, heard the rain start tapping again on the roof, like someone knocking gently. In the dark room, I whispered to the one who had gone, "I'm still here, Helen, and I will tend this lighthouse for both of us, even if the fog thickens, even if the waves rise." The next morning, the bay was wrapped in dense fog, and the ship's horn echoed from afar like a long toll announcing the new day. I have been used to waking early since my days as a mechanic, but today I did not hurry down to the boathouse. I made coffee weaker than usual, stood by the window looking at the garden, trying to imagine how Marcus would open the conversation. Before Helen died, he rarely came back to Newport. Now he was suddenly eager and in a hurry to handle the paperwork. I had the sense my son was racing against a clock whose face I had not seen. At 9 o'clock, Marcus's SUV rumbled up the slope. Laura came with him carrying little Emma, who was 4 years old. The child ran across the yard, her little rubber boots slapping on the wet stones, shouting, "Grandpa!" I bent and hugged her, and my chest tightened. Children cannot fake an embrace. Emma's hug made me forget my doubts of last night for a moment. But immediately after, Marcus came in with a thick stack of papers tucked under his arm and set them on the dining table like an insurance agent. Before I could pour coffee, he pulled out a packet. "Dad," he said quickly, "this is the power of attorney paperwork, so I can handle Mom's hospital bills for you. If we delay, penalties will mount." I sat with my hand on the table. "Can your lawyer explain the details?" "I won't sign anything without reading it carefully." He forced a smile. "I already read it. Trust me. It's just administrative. It doesn't touch anything else." I slowly flipped through the pages. Legal jargon, long clauses, the small print that tires the eyes. One line stood out, general power of attorney. I stopped and looked up. "A general power of attorney? You say it's only to pay bills." Marcus's smile faded. "Are you suspecting me, Dad? Your own son?" Laura put her hand on her husband's and tried to lower her voice. "Marcus, maybe let your father read it." But he brushed her hand away, a flash of irritation crossing his face. "Dad," Marcus said, voice trembling, "you don't understand. These days, if you're not fast, you lose everything. People don't wait." I looked deep into his eyes. There was a tremor in them, not grief, but fear. I remembered Anna's warning from last night. "You saw him with strange people. You should be careful." I folded the papers. "I will not sign. If you truly need this, we will hire a lawyer. This house, the boathouse, this is my life with your mother. Nothing here is just a form." Marcus took a deep breath, and his jaw tightened. "You never trust me?" "Not even now." Laura tugged lightly at his sleeve. "Marcus, please." Not today, but he would not let it go. He pulled out his phone, tapped quickly, and then said in a low voice, "Sorry, Dad. I'm just trying to help." He did not look at me while he said it. He looked at the bright screen in his hand as if reporting to someone else. In the afternoon, I went down to the boathouse. The compressors were where I left them. the smell of engine oil familiar in the air. I turned on the radio, and country music mixed with the rain on the tin roof. Repairing boats used to be my pride, but customers are fewer now. People prefer to buy new boats than pay to refit the old. This garage no longer has great commercial value, unless you consider the wide plot of land by the bay. While I was wiping my hands, the phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number read, "Mr. Grant, tell your son to pay $500,000 this week. If not, we will take other things. Everyone knows you have valuable assets." My blood turned cold. This was no longer mere suspicion. This was evidence. Marcus owed dangerous people money, and he saw me, this house, and the garage as collateral to settle debts. I picked up the phone, about to call the police, but I paused. If Marcus was indeed involved with loan sharks, reporting them now might push him further into despair, and I had no concrete proof beyond that one message. They could deny it, and Marcus, he could become more desperate. That evening, Laura called me secretly while Marcus was out. Her voice trembled. "Dad, I don't know how to say this. Marcus has been secretive lately. He leaves early, comes back late, sometimes bringing envelopes of cash. I'm afraid for Emma." I gripped the phone. "Stay calm. Don't sign anything. If anyone forces you, say you must ask your father-in-law first. Do you understand?" "Yes," Laura choked. "I just want Marcus to come back to the man he used to be." "But don't blame yourself," I cut in. "Tomorrow I'll try to talk to him straight." After I hung up, I sat alone in the living room. Outside the window, the lighthouse still flashed 4 times, then rested. I remembered Helen and her words. "Edward, if one day you see darkness inside your own house, don't fool yourself into thinking it's only clouds." Today, that darkness had stepped across the threshold. My son, my own flesh and blood, was turning my grief into an opportunity to sell the roof over our heads. And the worst part? I was no longer sure whether he did it for money or to save his own skin. On Friday afternoon, the skies over Newport suddenly cleared after days of rain, but that sunlight did nothing to lighten my heart. I knew Marcus would return, and this time he would not come empty-handed. I set the dining table, placed a few candles Helen had loved, just to remind myself this house was still mine, that no one had the right to turn it into a commodity. At exactly 7 o'clock, the SUV engine echoed on the slope again. Laura carried Emma, followed by Marcus, with an Italian takeout bag in hand. "Dad," he forced a smile, "I brought lasagna you like." "Tonight let's sit down properly." I nodded, pulled out a chair for Laura. My daughter-in-law busied herself with plates. Emma ran around the table, and only Marcus kept his black case by his chair, as if carrying a weapon. Dinner began with small talk, Emma learning songs, Laura telling a library story, and I mentioned a new boat in the shop. But the air was only a thin shell. Candles burned evenly, cutlery clinked lightly, yet I felt Marcus's tension. He hardly ate, just cut lasagna into small bites, eyes drifting to the case. I set down my fork. "Marcus, we need to speak plainly. What do you want from me?" The room froze. Laura looked up anxiously. Marcus stiffened, then sat upright, hands interlocked. "Dad," his voice low but quick, "I need your help once. Just once. Then I'll manage." "I'm listening." He inhaled deeply. "I need money." "A lot. $500,000 is not enough. I must pay more than $1 million, and only you can." Laura dropped her spoon, her face pale. "Marcus, what are you saying?" He did not look at his wife, only at me. "You have the garage, the land, the bay house. I calculated all together could sell for more than $1 million. You can settle this quickly. I need your signature to move faster." I leaned back, voice calm. "Who do you owe?" He avoided my eyes. "Not important. What matters is that if I do not pay, everything is lost. Me, Laura, Emma too." I leaned forward, lowered my tone. "Son, I paid all my life to build what we have. I will not throw it away for foolish choices. If you truly need it, I can take a quick bank loan. Maybe 200,000. That is the limit. He jumped up and slammed the table. The wine glass shook. Red spilling across the white cloth like spread in blood. 200,000. That is a grain of sand. You never supported me. When I played soccer, I missed half the games. When I graduated, you were out delivering instead of taking pictures. And now, when I face life and death, you offer that miserable number. Laura tugged at his sleeve, frightened. Marcus, stop. The child is here. Emma's eyes were wide, uncomprehending. I kept my voice low but firm. I gave you everything for a full life. Home, tuition, opportunities your mother and I never had. You cannot keep using the past to accuse me. Marcus stood, breathing hard, face flushed. In his eyes I saw anger but also desperation. He was no longer a boy proving himself, but a man cornered. Laura took Emma out, her voice breaking. You two need to talk, but not like this. When the door closed, Marcus lowered his voice, hoarse. You don't understand. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about survival. Looking in his eyes, I saw despair. This was not a son pleading, but a man cornered, ready to risk all for his life. And I realized his next steps would not stop at begging. They won't give me more time. If I don't pay, I lose everything, and they won't stop with me. My spine went cold. Who? He shook his head, gave a bitter smile, and his eyes were wet. You don't want to know. We sat in silence. Rain tapped again on the eaves. I looked at my son, my own flesh, and my heart tangled. There was a gulf between us, dug by debts, by ambition, by a fear I could not yet name. And I knew this dinner was only the opening act of a darker play coming. The next morning, ocean winds shook the window frames. I woke with a heavy head, the dinner still pressing like a stone in my chest. Helen had once said, when the house grows cold, look for someone who knows how to light the fire. I never thought that someone would be Anna. Anna had been with the villa since Helen's days. In her 50s, widowed young, she tended the garden and helped with chores. Helen trusted her completely, so much that each Thanksgiving she saved Anna a chair. After Helen passed, I offered to release her, but Anna refused. As long as you are here, I am here. This house needs a woman's hand. That morning I found her in the yard picking broken branches after the storm. She looked up, squinting. You didn't sleep, did you? I sighed. Good guess? No guess. No parent with trouble sleeps well? She set the branches down and dusted her hands. Last night I saw Marcus's car here late. Did you two argue again? I stayed silent, only nodding. Anna stepped closer, lowered her voice. Mr. Edward, I don't want to intrude, but I must say this. I saw Marcus with strangers, not locals, not garage clients. The kind with predator eyes. Her words sank heavy. Are you sure? Sure. Last week at Helen's grave, I saw Marcus in a car with 2 men. They exchanged envelopes. I'm not gossiping, but I've lived long enough to know when a deal smells dangerous. I braced against the bench, eyes on the bay. I had already suspected. Last night's message confirmed it. But hearing it from Anna was like driving another nail into a door of truth I did not want to open. Anna placed her hand on my shoulder. Be careful. I know he's your son, but debt can turn good men bad. I saw it in my own family. I turned, surprised. Anna rarely spoke of herself. She gave a sad smile. My brother borrowed from loan sharks to save his shrimp farm. He lost the farm, lost his family. When desperate, people do things you cannot imagine. I don't want that for you. The sea wind whipped, carrying salt. I felt each word like a needle. Anna, I said softly, if you see anything else, tell me at once. I don't want to make the mistake of blind trust and lose everything. She nodded firmly. I promise. At noon, Marcus did not return. Laura called, said he was busy with work in the city, her voice trembling. I knew she sensed, but feared to face it. I told her, if anyone comes, delay them. Don't accept or sign anything. Call me immediately. After hanging up, I sat alone in the garage. The compressors silent. I thought of Helen, of my promise to protect this home, and for the first time, I felt not entirely alone. Anna had seen, Laura had doubted. If I gathered enough pieces, the truth would show. In silence, I realized the storm had swept through, but within the black clouds, a small crack of light had appeared. Late afternoon, the sky over Newport was a solid gray. Heavy, water-laden clouds seemed to press the whole heavens down onto the bay. I was fumbling in the garage when the phone suddenly rang, showing Marcus's name. I answered, thinking he was calling me, but immediately his voice came through, urgent, as if pleading with someone else. I promised I would pay, but don't push me any more. I'll scrape together the money. I just need a few more weeks. I went numb. This clearly wasn't a call meant for me. Marcus had accidentally dialed his father right while he was talking to someone else. And thanks to that, I heard everything. A strange man's voice, hoarse like rolling gravel, replied, Marcus, we already gave you 2 months. If you don't pull together $500,000 this week, then we'll come take it another way. Your old man has a house, land, and a garage. Don't think we don't know I froze, my hand clenching the grease-slick shop rag. A debt of $500,000, and they were aiming at me. Wait, Marcus panicked. Give me 1 more week. I'll have at least half. The rest? My old man has a house, a garage. I'll convince him to sign and sell. Just give me more time. The man chuckled darkly. Don't swear. We want money, not promises. Then the line cut off with a blunt click. I yanked the phone from my ear, heart pounding. Before I could speak, the line had gone dead. Marcus certainly didn't know I'd heard it all. That night, I sat in the living room, the desk lamp casting a warm glow over the garage paperwork. I turned page after page of ledgers, income tapering off, maintenance contracts thinning. My real value wasn't in cash, but in land, this plot right on the bay. If sold, it would fetch over $700,000. Add the house, it could reach $1,200,000. Enough for Marcus to use to pay his debt. Helen once wrote in her journal, never turn a house into a number. This is where we live, not a balance sheet. Reading that line constricted my throat. Marcus had turned everything into a cold calculation, sell his father in exchange for his own life. Night fell and Laura called. Her voice trembled. Dad, today Marcus brought home an envelope of cash, I asked, and he snapped, said it wasn't my business. I'm scared. I'm really scared. I drew a long breath, steadying my voice. You're not alone, Laura. Just stay calm and take care of Emma. Leave the rest to me. After hanging up, I sat in silence. In my mind, each detail linked together. The general power of attorney packet, the threatening text, the accidentally broadcast call. All of it led to one conclusion. Marcus no longer controlled his own life, and I, his father, was being shoved onto a dangerous chessboard. Outside, rain began hammering the garage roof. It felt like hearing the knock of a blood debt, trying to find its way into the house. After the night of confrontation and the rain, the house felt even heavier. I woke in the middle of the night to Marcus's footsteps, pacing on the second floor like a caged animal. Laura slept downstairs with Emma in her arms, the soft nightlight casting yellow over her pale face. I knew my daughter-in-law understood, yet still clung to the hope that her husband was only temporarily lost. The next morning I went to the garden. Anna was picking vegetables, a wicker basket in hand, her eyes studying me closely. She didn't make small talk, just went straight to it. You all right? I heard arguing last night. I nodded, though the fatigue still showed in my eyes. Anna set the basket down, lowered her voice. Mr. Edward, I don't want to scare you, but I saw a strange car parked at the bottom of the slope since early morning. The person inside didn't get out, just sat and watched the villa. I don't think it's a tourist. I turned to look. Sure enough, there was a dark gray sedan with tinted windows, engine idling quietly. Instinct told me that was a sign the noose was tightening. At noon, Laura found me in the garage, eyes red. "Dad," she quivered, "I read messages on Marcus's phone." They gave him a deadline until Monday. If not, they'll handle it. She handed me the phone, the screen showing every line clearly. "If you can't get the money, your old man will instead. Don't try anything." I took it, my hand shaking. The threats were now in writing, no longer just a voice on the phone. Laura choked up, "I don't know what to do. I love Marcus, but I can't let Emma grow up like this. Dad, please, save our little girl." I put a hand on her shoulder and spoke slowly. "You're not alone, Laura. Stay calm and take care of Emma. Leave the rest to me. Don't try to handle this by yourself. We have to stand together if we're going to resist." A glint of hope flickered in her eyes, though still wet with tears. Toward evening, Anna brought over an old wooden box and set it on the dining table. She opened it. Inside was a tiny voice recorder, the kind reporters use. "Do you remember when I told you about my brother? He got trapped because he lacked evidence. I learned that when dealing with people like this, words aren't enough. I've kept this for years. Now it's yours." I looked at her, surprised and grateful. "Anna, you mean to help me?" She smiled sadly. "Not just you. Helen, too. She trusted me, so I can't watch your son destroy everything she left." That night, I sat in the study with the recorder on the desk. Outside, waves beat against the rocks, reminding me that time wouldn't stand still. Marcus was still scheming, but I'd begun to raise a fence. For the first time, I didn't feel entirely alone. In the dark, I sensed it. The vortex of debt can swallow a man, but with quiet allies, I still had a chance to keep this home. On Saturday night, the rain eased, and Newport's harbor sank into heavy fog. Marcus suddenly knocked on my door, a taut smile on his face. "Dad, let's go out for a few drinks." It's been a while since we sat together properly. I know a small, quiet bar. I stared at him. In that strained look, I saw something like pleading and something like staging. But I still nodded. Since Helen died, he'd never invited me anywhere. I wanted to see where this was going. The bar was in a damp corner street, the neon sign flickering, the driftwood. Inside, cigarette smoke drifted under dim yellow lights. Marcus ordered 2 beers, then tried to chat, as if everything were normal. "Remember when I was 12, Dad?" We went to the pier, had hot dogs, and watched the boat races. I never forgot I sipped my beer in silence. Those warm fragments were once real, but now he used them like seasoning to mask rot. Behind the counter sat a man about my age, gray-haired, solid build. His eyes swept Marcus quickly, then settled on me. When Marcus stood to fake a trip to the restroom, the man put a hand on the bar and signaled. I hesitated, then stepped closer. "You're Edward Grant?" A deep, steady voice, like a soldier. "I am." He leaned in and whispered, "Listen carefully. Your son came here twice this week with 3 men, the dock rats call vultures. They don't drink beer. They discussed removing you to clear the inheritance. I went still, my heart cinched. The man opened a cabinet and pulled out a small camera monitor. The footage was clear. Marcus shaking hands with 3 big men, exchanging envelopes. One of them I recognized as the guy I'd seen in the dark gray sedan below the slope the other day. "Jake, Rico, Tony," the man said. "Cold-blooded. I saw them in Afghanistan as hired guns. Now they do one job, cleanups." I tried to stay calm. "Why are you telling me?" He gave a faint smile, eyes far away. "Because 27 years ago in Kandahar, a mechanic soldier named Edward Grant dragged me out of gunfire. He took a bad hit in the shoulder, and I lived. Back then, I only had time to read the blood-smeared nameplate on his protective vest. Grant. I burned that name into my mind and carried it home. Years later, retired, I opened this little bar in Newport. When I heard locals mention a boatworks run by an Edward Grant, a veteran mechanic, I wondered. The night your son brought you in here, the way you walked, that low voice, I knew it was you. I went silent as the bomb night memories surged back, the hiss of shells, the scorched sand. I remembered acting on instinct, dragging a surviving kid out of a pit. I never thought I'd meet him again, least of all like this. My hand shook as I set it on his shoulder. My God, so you're that young soldier? He nodded, a smile both warm and sad. Yes. And the reason I waited until now is that I needed to be sure. I didn't want to be wrong. I watched you a few times. Saw you with Marcus. Saw your unease. And when I heard the vulture's plan to remove his father, I knew this was the moment to repay a debt. I can't stand by while the man who saved my life is pushed into a trap by his own blood. My throat closed. I hadn't cried since Helen died. But there, in the smoke of the bar, my eyes blurred at the return of an old debt. Thank you, I whispered, my voice breaking. You kept a soldier's promise and gave me a chance to live again. Marcus returned, a strained smile. You okay, Dad? Why were you talking alone with the owner? The man, whose name tag read Marvin, immediately turned to pour beer for another customer as if nothing had happened. I nodded, masking my tremor. I'm fine. Just asked about the baseball schedule. Marcus smiled, but a vein rose in his neck. He knew something was wrong. Back at the villa, I locked my room and sat on the bed. Marvin's words pounded. They discussed removing you. A chill ran down my spine. Now it was no longer suspicion. Vague debts. Marcus, my son, had hired killers, and I was the commodity he would trade to pay what he owed. Outside, the waves slammed against the rocks, echoing like a countdown clock. I left the bar, heavy with what Marvin had just revealed. My son, Marcus, had hired hitmen, and I myself was the commodity to pay his debt. The beer wasn't even finished, yet I felt as if I'd swallowed poison. Marcus came back to the table, pretending to be cheerful, but his gaze rippled. He tried to make small talk. Baseball, childhood stories. Yet his hand trembled slightly, and I knew he was buying time. From the back of the room, Marvin tilted his head, eyes grave. He murmured so softly only I could hear, The 3 guys are in position. If you go out the front, you won't survive. Go to the restroom. There's a small window. Get out now. My blood ran cold. I nodded slightly, then forced a smile at Marcus. You're old man now. Beer hits fast. Gotta take a quick leak. He grinned, but it was too stiff. I stood, crossed the creaking wood floor. Each step felt like stepping on a mine. The restroom was narrow, with old tile on the walls and sickly yellow light. I slid the bolt, inhaled deeply. High on the wall was a rectangular window, not even 2 handspans wide. Outside was darkness and a misting rain. I braced my hands on the sink and hauled myself up. My knees stabbed with pain, my shoulders seized. At 65, squeezing through a tiny window is its own torture. But I knew that if I didn't, I'd be walking straight into the hands of 3 hired killers. The frame squealed as I forced my body through. My coat snagged and tore. I stifled a groan and tumbled onto the damp ground outside. My knee slammed into the concrete, pain lancing to my hip, but I was alive. The alley behind the bar was pitch black, reeking of trash and machine oil. I pressed my back to the wall, gasping. Music and voices from inside still drifted out, normal to the point of cruelty. A deep voice sounded at the alley's mouth. He's still in there, right? I froze. That was one of the 3 Marvin had named. Jake, husky, hard as steel. I tucked behind a dumpster, heart hammering. Wait for the signal. The son says he'll bring him out the front. 2 more minutes. Another voice, rough and booming. Rico, surely. My fingers dug into the dumpster's rim. My son really was leading his father into the wolves' jaws. I crawled low along the brick wall, feeling for a way out at the back. A steel door opened to the lot. I slipped through the gap and hid behind an old pickup. In the jaundiced streetlight, I clearly saw Marcus standing with Jake at the front door. He smiled, shook hands, then pointed into the bar. I understood. He had just sold me out. I turned away, my chest tightening. What father imagines his own son standing with a killer, plotting to end his father's life? I slipped onto the narrow back street. My old Ford pickup still waited at the corner like a faithful friend. I slid in, heart thundering, turned the key. The engine rumbled like the breathing of an old beast. I swung out of the lot, headlights slicing the fog. Behind me, the driftwood receded, along with the men, certain I was still trapped inside. My hands shook on the wheel, but something else began to rise in me, a cold clarity. I understood that from this moment on I was no longer just a father who knew only disappointment. I was a survivor, and I would find a way to protect myself. Newport's night lay still after the rain, cold mist veiling the bay. I drove the old Ford back to the villa, heart still pounding as if to tear the ribs apart. When the iron gate clicked shut behind me, I knew I had just dodged an appointment with death. But from this second, I couldn't just sit and wait. I had to prepare. In the kitchen, Anna was waiting with a steaming cup of tea. Laura had brought Emma to the villa for a few days, using the pretense of helping look after father-in-law, to stay away from Marcus. She no longer felt safe around her husband. Tonight, mother and child slept in the living room, Emma dozing on the sofa, while worry still scored Laura's face. I set my keys on the table and exhaled. Tonight, they nearly took my life. Marcus led me into a trap at the driftwood. If not for Marvin, I wouldn't be here. Anna fell silent. She pressed a hand to her brow, shaking her head. I suspected it. I've seen those men around the bar these past few days. So Marcus truly sold his father. Laura burst into tears, trying not to wake the child. Dad, I'm sorry. I saw him secretly meet strangers, but I didn't think he could go that far. I squeezed her shoulder. Don't blame yourself. We don't have time for regret. We have to gather evidence, piece by piece, to force them into the open. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out Helen's wooden box. Inside were the garage's old files, debt logs and photos from our opening day. Beside them was the little recorder Anna had given me earlier. I flipped the switch, letting its faint clatter sound like the start of a new plan. Tomorrow, I said, firm, I'll go back to the driftwood and ask Marvin to extract the camera footage. And Laura, keep the messages on Marcus's phone. They're proof he's dealing with the underworld. Anna cut in. I can photograph the plates of that gray sedan I saw on the slope. If we hand them to the police, they'll trace it fast. I nodded. Good. Every detail's a brick. Put together, we'll have a wall. That night, after everyone had gone to their rooms, I sat alone at the table, spreading papers like a battle map. I wrote in slow strokes. 1, date and time. Marcus misdialed, exposing the debt and the plan. 2, witness. Marvin, the owner, a veteran, saw the exchange with his own eyes. 3, evidence. Bar camera, phone messages, the sedan's plates. 4, risks. My life, Laura and Emma's safety. 5, counterattack. Submit evidence to police, while exposing Marcus before the family and the community. Each line drove into the wood like a nail. I was no longer last night's prey. I was building a case, not only to defend myself, but to return the truth. I looked up and my eyes fell on Helen's photo on the wall. She smiled gently in her blue dress, eyes lit with faith. I whispered, Helen, I won't let the dark swallow us this time. I'll keep this house, keep our legacy, and if I must, I'll let the whole town know which road our son chose. Outside, the surf pounded like war drums, heralding the final confrontation drawing near. At midnight, as the villa clock struck 12, headlights cut across the iron gate. Marcus returned. I heard the engine long before, my heart pounding again, but this time I was prepared. I sat at the kitchen table, cold tea in front of me, pretending to skim through old newspapers. Marcus walked in, Laura still busying herself with Emma, playing her part as if nothing was wrong, but in her eyes fear still flickered. Anna, too, pretended to keep things light, though in truth she had already chosen my side. The moment Marcus saw me, he frowned. Dad? Why are you back early? I went to the restroom and came back, but you weren't there. I looked up calmly, high blood pressure. Felt unwell, so I drove home early. Didn't want to trouble you and Lucy. He froze a moment, then forced a nod. Ah, right. I thought you stayed? The silence grew heavy. Laura hushed Emma to sleep. Anna poured more tea, and everyone played along to keep suspicion at bay. But beneath it all, I could see the taut edge in their eyes. When Marcus went upstairs, I quietly pulled out my phone and dialed Tom Harper. My old friend answered in the dead of night. I told him briefly about Driftwood, Marvin, and the danger looming. Tom didn't ask much, only said firmly, "Listen, Ed, I'll have 2 men watching the villa. Don't ever step out alone again. Tell me your moves ahead of time, and keep the evidence ready. We'll close the file when the moment's right." I nodded, though he couldn't see. When the call ended, I exhaled. Outside, the waves whispered, but in my chest, a storm had broken. Morning fog draped Newport. I slipped on my old work coat, pulled a cap low, and hid my face behind dark glasses. Before leaving, I told Anna, "If anyone asks, say I went to check the garage. Don't let Marcus suspect my old Ford rolled out the back gate at dawn." In the rear mirror, I glimpsed distant headlights, Tom's men shadowing me. That thought steadied me. At Driftwood, Marvin greeted me with a nod and handed me a USB. On it, clear footage of Marcus handing an envelope to the 3 men. "This is undeniable proof," Marvin said, voice iron. I gripped his hand, knowing this was another piece of the puzzle. At noon, Anna called. She had snapped photos of the gray sedan's plates lingering near the villa. Laura, her hands trembling, showed me shots of texts from Marcus's phone. Times, sums, threats, like a contract written in blood. I filed them neatly and sent a copy to Tom through a trusted channel. That afternoon, Tom called back, steady as stone. "Edward, do nothing rash tonight, but set the table. Invite Marcus for dinner. We'll be in the neighborhood. If he makes a move, we'll shut it down right there." I clenched the phone, nodding. Tonight would decide everything. Evening fell. The villa glowed warm, hiding the storm above it. I called Marcus. "Son, tonight I want the family together. I have something important to say." He came, weary but eyes glittering with calculation. Laura laid the table, Anna served hot soup, and I sat at the head, a folder resting by my hand, as if it were only work papers. In the flicker of candles, the meal began, looking calm but tight as a drawn bowstring. I studied my son's forced smile and steeled myself. Tonight, the masks would fall. The dinner suffocated under its false warmth. I slid the folder across, page after page. Photos, messages, license plates. "Explain," I said, voice like stone. Marcus froze, wine spilling from his shaking glass. It's not what you think." I was forced. If I didn't... I heard it myself. I cut him off. Marvin saw it with his own eyes. "This isn't coercion. This is betrayal," he shot up, chair crashing, roaring like a trapped beast. "You never understood me. You only cared about that rusty garage. I needed more. I deserved more." Anna's voice cracked. "By selling your own father, Marcus?" Laura sobbed, clutching my hand. Beneath the table, I pressed the small switch 3 times. The lamp blinked thrice, a battlefield signal. Outside, headlights flashed back. Tom's men were ready. Marcus, oblivious, breathed raggedly, then suddenly reached into his coat. Anna screamed. I shielded Laura. A second stretched into eternity. The villa door crashed open. Shouts thundered, "Police! Don't move!" 3 officers stormed in, guns gleaming. Marcus staggered back, wide-eyed, and was cuffed in seconds. Tom Harper stepped forward, voice ringing. "Marcus Turner, you are under arrest for conspiracy with organized crime and attempted murder. We have witnesses and evidence," Marcus thrashed, shouting, "No! You don't understand. I just wanted to live differently." The cuffs clicked shut, cutting off his words. Laura collapsed into a chair, tears flooding. Anna stood frozen, eyes wet but fierce. I whispered, only for Marcus to hear as they dragged him out. I could give you everything except one thing, the right to betray, and you lost this family by your own hand. The door slammed, leaving silence. The dinner table lay in ruin, wine stains, cold food, but in my chest burned the certainty that justice had spoken. I turned to Laura and Anna, my voice soft. We've kept this house, and we've kept the truth outside. The waves drummed steadily against the shore, closing one battle and heralding a dawn. Marcus was sentenced to years in prison for conspiring with criminals and plotting murder. Once a man the town had high hopes for, he fell, branded with a stain that would never fade. Laura was cleared, freed from the shadows of a rotten marriage. She brought Emma back to the villa, where a child's laughter once again filled the rooms, washing away nights of tears. Anna, with her quiet strength, became the anchor for 3 generations left standing, and I kept the house, Helen's legacy, and most importantly, a real family, though missing one son who chose the wrong road. If you've followed this far, tell me, do you think a son like Marcus deserves forgiveness? Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment, letting me know where you're listening from. Your support is what gives me the strength to share the truths no one dares to tell.